Hey guys, it is big news today. We are getting a brand new mythical and a brand new event. But for this video, I want to just focus on the mythical. Now, are we most likely going to be able to get this champion easily? Hell frickin' no. This champion will either be from shards or through some sort of event reward or just event in general. I'm not going to hold my breath. It's very unlikely. So while most of you guys watching this probably will not get her, I still think that it is fun to go through new champions and just see what they're about, especially when it comes to mythicals. Genuinely have some of the most interesting kits and some of the most imaginative gameplay elements, especially this one, because Kurosa the Covetous has two brand new debuffs. We have Fortify and we also have Shatter, which I will cover when we get there. I want to go over the kit, go over where I think they might be good, and that'll just be the video. This is a pretty low-key one here. If you want to get one of the best starts in Raid Shadow Legends, use the link in my description below to get a free legendary champion, Narma the Returned, as well as 3 amazing epic champions as you level up. Now, the way that you're going to do this is you're going to log out of Plarium Play on PC and uninstall. Then you're going to click the link in the description, register with a brand new email. Then you're going to launch Raid, complete the tutorial, and as you go to your inbox, you are going to be able to claim your first legendary champion. Next, you're going to get Anax, Uugo, and Mausoleum Mage as you level up. Please don't let this insane offer pass you by and click on my link now to get the start that you deserve. So first of all, Kurosa the Covetous is a Demonspawn mythical champion. She starts out as a support, but then can swap over to an attack. And she is very, very interesting. Now, her first form design is not really that great in the standards of mythicals, in my opinion. But the second form looks very cool. I really like the wings and the general vibe that is going here. And she's pretty damn cool. Now, going into her kit, we're going to start off with Surge of Chaos, her A1. And this is a very strong A1. It attacks all enemies, heals all allies, and the value of the heal is proportional to this champion's attack. A lot of her kit on her base form is going to have, based off of her attack, abilities, which is going to really promote building her with attack, which in turn will also make her alternate form a little bit stronger, which is pretty cool. Now, her A2 is going to be anything from Siroth. This is a 3-turn cooldown when booked. A really good ability, removes all debuffs from all allies. Absolute W. Removing debuffs from all allies, full team cleanse is always a good thing. There's a lot more of these than there used to be, but it doesn't make it any less of a good ability. And it doesn't stop there, of course. She's a friggin' mythical. It also places a 50% big version increase attack and a shield buff on all allies for 2 turns. The value of the shield is proportional to this champion's attack. Now, I will have to see what the multipliers are like when she is closer to coming out, but for now, it's a very solid ability. And finally, for the first form's abilities, before getting into obviously the passives and then the second form, we get Running Rampant. Now, this is on 4-turn cooldown, but it's a very solid ability. First of all, it places a taunt buff, which is kind of the opposite of provoke, or not really the opposite. It's kind of like the counterpart to provoke. It makes it so that the enemies have to target her. And she puts a 25% fortify buff on her as well for 2 turns. Fortify is a very interesting ability. As you can see here, pulling up Hellheidi's website, highly recommend if you need to look anything up. There's 2 new buff types introduced. Fortify is going to reduce enemy ignore defense effects by 15% or 25%. Obviously, Kurosa has the big version. She is a mythical. If it doesn't have a big version of something, it is appalling. So she is going to kind of resist defense penetrating effect, which with current raid, which more heroes do that sort of thing, this is actually a really solid buff for later game, right? She also places an unkillable buff on all allies except this champion for 2 turns. Not a bad buff, but when block damage is a thing, it is a little bit less exciting, but this is a still very good ability. And it's so good when you pair it with her passive. Her passive is ridiculous. Collector of Pawns, her passive, is a 2-parter. The passive effect is ridiculous. Receives 15% less damage for each alive ally. Obviously, you don't want allies dead, so we can assume that if you have 3 other allies, she is going to be taking a constant 45% less damage. Do you know how dumb that is? She is going to taunt and take basically half the damage. And if you have a defense penetrator attacking her, it's going to do less damage. That's really, really good. And that's only half of her passive. Her active effect, instantly transform this champion into the alternate form whenever their last living ally is killed. This reminds me a lot of Siegfried, although this is one that activates, but it does not lock out your Metamorph. Metamorph obviously is the thing that swaps to the other form. Her aura as well is 35% ally attack in all battles. Really pairs well with her kit for attack heavy build. Now, moving on to the alternate form for Kurosa, we get to start off with Destroyer of All, which is a 3-hitter, A1. If this attack kills an enemy, deals pure damage to all other enemies. If the other enemies are not bosses or minions, the amount of pure damage dealt is equal to 30% of the initial target's max HP. If it's a boss or minion, then it's reduced to 10% instead. And this attack cannot be critical, so you might not need to build her with as much crit rate just because it's a little counterintuitive. I think they're trying to really push everyone who builds her to going more of an attack route to really benefit growth of form. Either way, you're going to want to try to kill with the A1 on higher HP units because you're just going to get simply more benefit from it. Now, moving on to the second ability, Icon of Havoc. It is a AoE. Before attacking, steals all buffs from all enemies, full team cleanses, and full enemy steal all buffs or even remove all buffs is incredibly strong. The fact that she has both is really, really good, and it makes her quite a bit better. Stealing all buffs from all enemies, incredibly strong, and she's hitting them pretty hard. And that's not even where it ends. Targets whose attack is lower than this champion's attack, which is going to be pretty often, cannot resist this effect. Also places a 25% weaken debuff on all enemies for 2 turns. Targets whose attack is equal to or lower than this champion, attack cannot resist this effect. So basically everyone is going to not be able to resist either of that. The steal and the weaken. Weaken, great debuff to put out. She's putting out increased attack on her base form. She's doing the debuff strip on your allies, and then she's also taking all buffs from all enemies. It's a lot of stuff happening, and a lot of it is actually pretty damn good. Now, moving on to the A3, this is where we're going to get Shatter. Places a 15% Shatter buff and a 30% increased crit rate buff on this champion for 3 turns. It is a 4-turn cooldown, but it also gives an extra turn. So she's going to get it functionally for 2 turns, which is kind of interesting. Shatter as well increases a champion's ignore defense effect by 7.5% or 15%. That's Shatter. That is the second new buff being added. Anyways, beyond this point, places a True Fear debuff on all enemies for 1 turn. True Fear is incredibly annoying, and targets whose attack is equal to or lower than this champion's attack cannot resist this effect. Really solid. Then grants an extra turn. Now, Metamorph, obviously same thing as usual, and the passive is going to deal 15% more damage for each dead ally, kind of a parallel of her base form's passive. And each crit boosts this champion's turn meter by 10% for each dead ally. So it is kind of promoting building crit rate while simultaneously promoting not using as much crit rate because she grants extra crit rate and then she can't crit on her A1. I assume this is just to stop it from her counterattacking and just building up too much turn meter, potentially. I don't know. But either way, I think she's pretty solid. Now, compared to a lot of mythicals, she's not going to be the most top tier mythical. I think it's very unlikely that she is. Although she does seem very, very good, and I would put her in probably the top half of the mythicals, because there are quite a few mythicals that are just simply not that great. Now, where is she going to be good, or what is she really going to do well? Well, she has a couple things that are really good increased attack. She shields and supports your allies very well. You want supports in this game, but unfortunately she doesn't support that much. So it will purely depend on how well you can build her offense form as well. She does a lot. I feel like the synergy might be a little all over the place, but this passive on her base form is ridiculous. She does Shatter and Fortify, which are really interesting. And just simply, she does so much. And I think no matter what you do, she's going to be good in most areas of the game, unless you're obviously very well developed, you're very late game, in which case it's going to be less important if you have a bunch of mythicals. But 9 times out of 10, if you pull her, you're probably going to use her everywhere. She's going to support you. She's going to do good damage. And she just simply is very strong. So very interesting champion. I definitely am curious to see where she gets some use the most for endgame players. And just simply, I'm glad she exists because she seems very unique, very interesting. And I'm glad to see that they are still pushing the envelope with hero designs, because at the end of the day, that's really why people play Raid, right? So that's it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching. Destin signing out.